What is going on, guys? Back with another daily podcast for the love of sports. What is going on, guys? And a bunch of topics to discuss today, January 27th, 2021. It's coming up fast, man. It's almost February. It's crazy. But let's get right into these topics, man. So I'm going to touch on five main topics today and pretty good ones. Last night's game, Wizards fall to 3-10 on the season. 3-10. Obviously the Russell Westbrook experiment is not working there because, this is another failed team for Westbrook. It didn't work out with the Rockets. It's obviously not working out with this team in Washington. And I feel bad for Bradley Beal. Honestly, out of everybody on that team, Bradley Beal is the one that I feel the worst for because this guy has literally been one of their best players in franchise history for years now. Especially the years John Wall's been out for 2 years before this. He had to sacrifice so much. He had to be literally the whole team. And even with Westbrook here, he's still the whole team, Bradley Beal. And it's just crazy to me. A team with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook's 3-10 through 13 games, like terrible. And to be honest with you, Russell Westbrook is the main reason why, because he's just not a team player. And you've heard that through, various teammates before in OKC. Obviously, James Harden didn't like being with him last year. That's why he wanted to trade. Pretty much demanded Russell Westbrook off the team this year. He ended up getting traded, swapped for John Wall. Obviously, it wasn't enough for James Harden to stick around. And, now he's in Washington, and that team has some big decisions to make because realistically, they got to get rid of one of those guys because that team is literally has not improved, in 4 years now. They made the playoffs. I think it was 2017. Isaiah Thomas was on the Celtics. They played them. That was the last time they were relevant in the playoffs. And I don't see that team getting better. Thomas Bryant is out for the year already with a torn ACL, one of their best young players. He's gone for the season. Bradley Beal has already said that, what am I supposed to do? I mean, you seen him on the bench last night after the loss. He's like depleted. He does not want to be in Washington anymore. And I feel horrible for him because he's a great player. He's leading the league in points this year. What a phenomenal talent. It's just, I think it's time to break up that team. And Russell Westbrook is not the guy they should have traded for. I said that from the start. I'm like, maybe John Wall you don't want anymore because John Wall was, injured for 2 straight years. You guys paid him all that money. He didn't even play a single game in 2 straight seasons. And I understand why they traded him, but I don't know why they would have traded to the Rockets in exchange for Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is very similar to John Wall, if not, in my opinion, he's worse because if they're both healthy, I think John Wall is the better teammate. And, John Wall is healthy right now, and he's looked actually pretty good in the games he's played in Houston. He is coming back from, like I said, 2 serious injuries, and Russell Westbrook is not doing anything with that team. He literally has more shots attempted than points, I think, going into last night, which is horrendous, first of all. And John Wall is doing pretty good in Houston. He's not doing great, but the team is actually better in Houston than they are in Washington. And the team is much worse. I mean, they just got Oladipo to play. Before that, they had Harden, who was playing at 50%, could care less when he was on Houston. And it's pretty much just Bradley Beal, and that's why I think Beal is going to force his way out by this year because this guy's getting no help. They've done a terrible job at, signing players. They signed Davis Bertans for $85 million in the offseason. Davis Bertans is like a glorified bench player. Like, he's decent. Like, he averaged, 17 last year? 17 points per game is good, but you have to factor in how bad the team is in order for him to have 17 points per game. They're horrible. They have no defensive presence at all. They are the worst defensive team in the league that I've seen in a long time. They literally cannot play defense, Washington. And it's sad because, like I said, they're going to break that team up. They're going to be horrible. They're going to trade Beal and Westbrook probably. Beal, I think, is going to get traded first because he's just going to be like, listen, I can't take this anymore. Someone get me off this team. And that's how he looked last night. Literally, he was sitting on the bench. They lost by 20 to Houston. They lost to John Wall and the Rockets. And it looked terrible because that team is much better on paper than the Rockets are. And it's literally not enough still. It's still not enough. And, that's been they're just wasting Bradley Beal on that team. They trade him for someone young at this point because The guy's rotting. He's rotting in Washington. And Scott Brooks, I don't even know how he's still the coach there. He sucks. He's a horrible coach now. He hasn't done anything since he's been there at all. He was a good coach, I thought, in OKC. I thought he deserved to get a new coaching job in Washington. But honestly, I was wrong because the team just has no defensive liability. They have no defensive presence at all. They've refused to play defense, any of their defenders. It's just, to me, that's on coaching because there's no way that a team with Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal is the worst in the league. And I know both of them, they've missed some games because they had people out with Corona, but it doesn't matter. They're back now, and they're still losing games they should win. And that's pretty much the reality of the situation is Bradley Beal is going to get traded, and I think he's going to go to South Beach or he's going to go out west. He's going to maybe go to the Golden State. They might trade a couple of their guys. I heard Andrew Wiggins possibly might be traded. Plenty of teams would want Bradley Beal. I mean, he's one of the best shooting guards, if not the best one in the whole league. He's averaging like 34 points this year. He's unreal. Averaged 30 last year. He's great. And, honestly, like he's one of the best scorers in the league. And if I were a team that was, on my way to playoff ascension or, a team that's already established that wants to make that next push to win a championship, I would have no problem trading for Bradley Beal. I don't know why teams aren't doing it already because eventually what's going to happen is they're going to be demanding so much for him that they're not going to be able to trade him. Right now, I would be like, listen, I would be hitting up Washington constantly. Like, listen, I'll trade you this, this, and that. Let's make out a deal for Bradley Beal because if not, eventually what's going to happen is they're going to literally command so much Washington and no one's going to want to do it. I mean, especially if they know he wants to leave. Like the same thing with Harden. I was surprised they got so much for him because they already knew he wanted to leave. It was like an open thing. And I'm surprised the Rockets got so much in exchange for him, honestly, because usually when that's the case and the guy has absolutely no intention of staying there, they're usually very hesitant on what they would actually package for a player like that. But obviously the Wizards, they think that they can turn this thing around, which I don't think is possible at this point. And I think they got to break up that team. Like I said, that was the big story I took from last night. It was only 3 games last night, and that was the biggest thing because it's one of those situations where you're not getting better with Bradley Beal. Russell Westbrook obviously wasn't the answer. Russell Westbrook isn't the answer anywhere. He's like 31 years old, 32 years old now. He's a stat padding machine is what Russell Westbrook is. He's not a good teammate. He's literally somebody that you would literally have on your team if you have established players, like 2 other players that are superstars. Sure, take Russell Westbrook on your team, but if not, I don't want Russell Westbrook on my team. I don't know why they thought that was a good trade because he just doesn't fit well at all with Bradley Beal, and it's obvious at this point because it's already how many games into the season? 13 games in for them. They have to make up a couple games because Corona. They're the worst team in the NBA. How can they be the worst team in the NBA with 2 people call them superstar players? They're not superstar players, obviously, if they can't. Westbrook is not a superstar player. I think Bradley Beal is, but Westbrook is not a superstar player. And people always say, oh, there's unnecessary hate for Westbrook because he just doesn't win. There's literally how many examples of he just cannot win a championship? It's not in Russell Westbrook's DNA to win a championship. We saw what happened last year with Houston. Failed. They got destroyed by the Lakers in the playoffs. 5-1, eliminated. They went to 7 games last year. They went to 7 games against OKC, who was supposed to be rebuilding last year. And it's even worse because they almost lost to them. I wish they'd lost because that would have been even worse because Chris Paul was traded to that team for Westbrook in the year. Imagine if they would have lost to them last year. That would have been so embarrassing. And the thing is, there's teams like that, like I just mentioned, OKC, that are outperforming the Wizards. A team that's completely rebuilding. It's obvious they're rebuilding. They traded literally everybody else on that team. They traded Steven Adams. They traded Chris Paul. They got rid of Chris Paul. It's like that team is rebuilding and still has a better record in the West than the Wizards do in the East, who's terrible. The Eastern Conference is horrible. And, there's 4 good teams, I think, in the East. The Bulls are better than them. The Bulls. They're horrible. Look at the other teams that are better than them. The Timberwolves have more wins than them right now. The Timberwolves have more wins than the Washington Wizards. They haven't had Karl Anthony Towns for literally the entire season almost. He had that wrist injury at first, and now he's out with coronavirus. It's just, to me, it's just pathetic. And like I said, that trade's going to come down, I think, within the next month. I think Beal's gone. They're going to try to trade Westbrook. He's going to be gone because realistically, they're just not going anywhere with those 2 guys. And I want a good team to trade for Beal. I think at this point in his career, he deserves to be on a good roster because he's just been subjected to such terrible coaching and ownership and management with the Wizards team. It's just pathetic, honestly, at this point. And another cool thing that I read last night is they might try to do an All-Star game this year. Chris Paul is the head of the NBA PA, I think that's what it's called, which is like the Players Association with the players, and the players are striving to get an All-Star game. It looks like Atlanta, Georgia is going to be the destination this year. And honestly, there's no reason why they can't because they're playing games. Like, don't even tell me that you can't do an All-Star game because of coronavirus. What is that? What are they more susceptible to get it because they're at an All-Star event? Like, no. You guys are already playing your games. Why can't you give the players at least a game, an All-Star game? They can all meet up, test them regularly like they do now, and, have an All-Star game because, so many players look forward to that, especially the first-time All-Stars that haven't done it before. Like Jaylen Brown. I want Jaylen Brown to make the All-Star team this year. He's great. He's been terrific for Boston. He's averaging 27 points this year. I want to see him in an All-Star game. I want to watch him play in an All-Star game. I want to see players like that, players that haven't made it, make the All-Star game and play. And, last year the All-Star game was awesome. It was super fun to watch. It was super competitive. I like how they switched it with, they had to get to the certain, I think it was 167 points they had to get to last year. That made the All-Star game so much better because it wasn't like a blowout. It wasn't like guys not trying. That fourth quarter and that third period last year were like the best All-Star game performances I've seen. Like, that was like crazy. That was like NBA Finals Game 7 in that game. So I really want to see an All-Star game this year. And it's supposed to go on in either March or late February. I think it's going to be March if they do it. But I hope they get that to happen, man, because like I said, those players deserve a chance to go to the All-Star game, especially the guys that haven't been there. And even the guys that go there, like I want to see LeBron James again in another All-Star game. We don't know how many he has left. I want to see these guys who are at the end of their careers go to the All-Star game. Like there's really no like vet this year in the NBA. I know like the last few years we had like Dwayne Wade at the All-Star game, Dirk Nowitzki at the All-Star game, Vince Carter didn't make the All-Star game, but I think he should have. But we don't really have like a veteran that's like on the verge of retirement this year for the first time. Like for the last few years, we had like Duncan and all those guys retiring out of the league, but we don't really have that this year. But I want to see the guys that are, close to retirement, like LeBron James, already 36 years old, or some of the other players getting up there in age because, it's only so far in between. There's going to be like 2 to 3 more probably for those guys at most. LeBron, I don't know how much longer he's going to play. I'm assuming he's going to play at least like another 3 years. But I want to see him in the All-Star game as much as I can. That's pretty much what I want to see. So I hope they get it done. I don't see why there's any reason that it shouldn't get done because the players want it. The fans obviously want to see it. What's the other reason why they wouldn't do it? And, player safety makes no sense because I was reading an article earlier and it was like player safety is up for grabs if they have an All-Star game. I'm like, why are these more? What is more at risk than having an All-Star game? What are they not at risk of a home game? Like that makes no sense. They're the same at risk. They test them before the game. They test them when they go to the All-Star game. I don't know what the big deal is. Test them. If they can't play, you're out. Fill in somebody for the All-Star game, just like they do with injuries. Like look at what happened last year. So many guys got injured. Devin Booker went to the All-Star game. Bradley Beal, I think, did he make it? I don't know if Bradley Beal made it, but I know he should have. But I mean, I'm sure this year there'll be guys that can't play in it for whatever reason, injury or corona, and they just fill them in with a replacement. I don't know why they don't do that. So I'm looking forward to that. Those are the two biggest things I took from the NBA yesterday. It was the Wizards starting 3-10, abysmal start to the season, and I seen the All-Star game supposed to go on in March. I really hope it happens. I hope the NBA PA ends up doing it, and I think that'll be great for the fans and great for the players. So on to some football headlines, and Indianapolis owner said today they want a veteran quarterback. They want a veteran presence in that locker room, which I already knew they wanted. And I just couldn't see that team going backwards to a young quarterback. To me, they're one of those teams that are literally right there on the verge of another championship. And because, Phillip Rivers retiring this year, they don't really have a guy there anymore. I mean, they still got Jacoby Brissett. He's not a championship quarterback. They need somebody else to fill in for the gap. And I think they're going to get it. I think they're definitely going to get it because what quarterback is not going to want to go to that team? They have the best offensive line in the league. That's like a quarterback's dream for a destination. Like, dude, if I was a free agent, I would love to go to Indianapolis. Quentin Nelson on my left, man, that guy's like a boulder. Like, no one gets by him. They have unreal offensive linemen on that team. I would love to go there and be an Indianapolis Colts quarterback. And believe me, they're gonna have no shortage of guys signing up for that job. Matthew Stafford's a candidate to go there. Carson Wentz is a candidate to go there. I even think Aaron Rodgers is a candidate to go there because if things don't turn out well with Green Bay, what better spot could he go to? That team, they're already a playoff team. They already are established. They already have an established roster. They have, like I said, offensive line is good. They have good skill position players. They need a couple more receivers, I think, in my opinion, but they got a good defense. I think a very good, hard-nosed defense. I think that's a great spot for those guys to go. And I think it's just a matter of time before they get their quarterback. And Stafford, I think, would be the best option if they can get Rodgers or one of those other guys because Stafford's only 32 years old. Stafford's 32 years old. He's been subjected to a terrible organization for years with Detroit, and I think finally now he has a chance to actually evolve with this team and get that Super Bowl or get close at least because, like I said, they wasted Stafford's career in Detroit. I don't care what anyone says. That guy could have been a Hall of Fame quarterback on a different team in different circumstances because realistically, the guy threw for 5,000 yards how many times? He had great seasons when he actually had good players. I mean, look at the seasons he had with Calvin Johnson. The guy was throwing 40 touchdowns over 5,000 yards. Those are MVP numbers, and he just couldn't do it consistently because the team was never consistent, and, he wants out, and I don't blame him. I don't blame Stafford at all for wanting out of that organization, and other pieces are going to be moving around as well. You got Jimmy Garoppolo possibly moving around. You got all these other quarterbacks. This is going to be a crazy year for free agency because realistically, I can't think of another year where there's so many guys moving around. I mean, I can just name 5 off the top of my head that I think are for sure going to leave. I think Stafford's long gone. I think Deshaun Watson's long gone. I think Garoppolo they're going to get rid of. They're going to move on. I think that, Cam Newton, whatever, he's gone for sure. I don't like Cam Newton, but who knows? Someone might like him. I heard Washington likes him. What are some other guys that can move? Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold could move on. All these guys. So there's going to be a massive free agency haul for quarterbacks this year, and I'm excited to see where all these guys go because it's going to be interesting because there's so many teams that are good already that are like one quarterback or one piece away from going to that next level. And I think if any of the teams are the best spot for that, it's got to be Indianapolis. It has to be because they already went 11-5 this year. They had a good team. They made the playoffs. They lost, obviously, to, Pittsburgh? Was it? No, it wasn't Pittsburgh. Oh, my God. It was the Bills. But, they had a good game. They were close to winning that game. They could have won that game in Buffalo. And realistically, maybe if they played a different team, they would have advanced a week further. And Rivers obviously wasn't the answer. He was his last season, in his incredible career, Phillip Rivers. But he was kind of like the fill-in guy. Like, he wasn't great. I mean, he was pretty much like I don't even know. Like, he was like a fill-in quarterback for one season that, like, barely could get the job done. I mean, Rivers obviously wasn't great this year. There's a reason why they didn't advance because if they had that next quarterback, I think they had Super Bowl aspirations. I think that their roster, head to toe, is definitely Super Bowl capable. And they're 1 or 2 positions away from going there. And I'm telling you right now, if they get Stafford or, God forbid, if they get Watson or somehow get Rodgers, they're going to the Super Bowl next year. Mark it down. And, I don't care what people say. They have Kansas City in the way. They have other teams. The Bills are going to be good again. That team is stacked, literally, the Colts. They get one other receiver, too, free agency or via the draft. They're going to be really good because they're, like I said, 2 guys away from having a ridiculously good roster. They got a tough defense. Their defense is really good. I think they were number 1 in overall defense this year. Like I just mentioned before, they had that crazy offensive line. They have 2 good running backs, Jonathan Taylor, pretty good receivers. They drafted a receiver last year out of USC. He's pretty good. They got, aging T.Y. Hilton. I think he's gone. I think they got to fill in that spot for sure. But like I said, that would be the team that I would look forward. And like you said, they already said they're looking for a veteran quarterback in Indianapolis. What's better than a Matthew Stafford or a Rodgers? Nobody. So we'll see what happens there. And Saints GM also said they're not doing a rebuild, which was pretty evident to me that they weren't going to do. Whatever. Drew Brees retires. They move on. They have a roster around it. And honestly, I think Drew Brees was holding them back the last few years, realistically. Drew Brees has been one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Anyone with a brain can tell you that. But the guy he's finished, man. He's finished with playing football. He's too old. He doesn't have the arm strength anymore. And they were injured this year, But, of course, they're not going to rebuild. I don't even know why the GM had to say that. Why would they rebuild? They have a great roster. They have a good defense. They have awesome receivers, They have Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, all these guys still there. they just don't have Breeze, and Breeze can get filled in by any one of those quarterbacks I just named. He's still got Jameis Winston on the roster, who I think is actually pretty capable of taking his spot. Like I said, Breeze didn't do that good in the games he played in this year. He had that serious rib injury. He was out for a bunch of games, but the games he did play in, he didn't do great. And obviously that playoff game that they lost to Tampa, I think he was probably the main reason why they lost that game. He had 3 turnovers. He had 3 interceptions, and that was the reason they lost. Realistically, that was literally the only reason they lost. If Breeze didn't have those 3 turnovers, Tampa would not be going to the Super Bowl. Simple as that. And I've been telling people that. I'm like, listen, they're really not that good because they could have lost 2 games. They almost lost to a third-string quarterback in Washington. They were pretty close to winning that game. I mean, it wasn't, a 2-point game, but granted, they were right there with them. And then the Saints game, they were also right there the whole game. In fact, the Saints were winning the majority of the game. Breeze just threw 3 picks, and then that was it. And this last game, they definitely won. I think Tampa definitely won that game. They played great. Brady played good, but he still had 3 picks, Brady. So I think they're beatable, and that's why I've been picking the Chiefs. I've been telling everybody I'm going all Chiefs in this year. I'm not trying to hate on Brady. Everyone knows I don't like Tom Brady. Tom Brady's a great quarterback, best quarterback ever, but Patrick Mahomes, man, it's Patrick Mahomes time. And I've been telling people that he's going to have 2 under 25 years old. He's going to have 2 Super Bowls under 25 years old. Mark it down. Patrick Mahomes is going to win this year again. They're going back-to-back. They're just not going to be able to stop Patrick Mahomes in that offense. It is what it is. Brady's 43. What an unbelievable career. It's unbelievable that he even made it this far, but he's not advancing by this week. And that's what it is. And I thought Green Bay was going to advance, and obviously they didn't. I thought that actually would have been a better game because, I think Green Bay was the better team all year. I thought they were virtually unstoppable for the majority of the season. Obviously, they were stopped last week, but I think they just had an off game. It sucks that it was only 1 game. Obviously, in the playoffs, you lose once, you're out. But, it is what it is. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, with the Saints, I don't think that they're going to get a young quarterback. They're going to get one of those guys. If it's not Winston, they're going to get one of those fill-in guys, Carson Wentz. Matt Ryan maybe could go there. They could let go of him. Could sign with the Saints. Could get traded to the Saints. Whatever he is. Carson Wentz, Matthew Stafford, Jimmy Garoppolo, Deshaun Watson. Tons of guys are going to be on the loose, and that's another team that's 1 player away from going to the Super Bowl. I think because they were been so close. How many years in a row have they lost early in the playoffs? It's been like 4 or 3 years already. 3 to 4 years where they've had the team and they just can't put it all together when it comes to playoff time. And honestly, the big reason why is Breeze. I think Breeze has been done for a few seasons. Obviously, I can't say anything bad about Breeze, but, he's been holding them back. He has been holding that team back because he has no throwing power at all anymore. And he's just making poor decisions in big games. He just hasn't been a great playoff quarterback. He has that 1 Super Bowl win, but other than that, him and Rodgers really haven't been that good in the playoffs. They haven't got to the Super Bowl again. It's just, it is what it is. They had great careers, Hall of Famers, obviously, both of those 2 guys. They're just not great playoff quarterbacks. But like I said, if, they can get somebody like Stafford, good for them or they can get somebody like Wentz, good for them because they're going to be a tough playoff team. They're going to be better this time around, I think. And we'll see what happens with them. Those are really the main topics I wanted to discuss today, guys. It's kind of a short show. I'm going to be on someone else's show later in the day. But appreciate you guys coming on for the Love of Sports podcast. Like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate the feedback. And like I said before, if you guys got any topics you guys want me to talk about, discuss, comment them in, the comment section below and give that thumbs up and that subscribe button. That'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys.